Yeah, I'm talking to myself again. To be honest, as you can see from the face, I'm quite tired, and so are my colleagues. We've been traveling the country, still on our tour, still promoting parent participation across the nation. One more to go for me, and Kaylin is going to be doing one in Manchester. I'm in London. And I wanted to continue the trend of reflecting on some of the things that we've heard, both from the head teachers who've worked with us, but also from the people who've attended, as head teachers sharing their practice at the end in the Q&A, which is just been magnificent. And I'm more and more of the opinion that all I need to do is be a good listener and a good sharer of the things that I learn from around the country, from from exceptional practice, because that way we can stop it being like we're all on our own, trying to solve the same problem independently from each other. And from the time I've been traveling, first obviously in Exeter, then in Wolverhampton, then in Sunderland, then in Peterborough, then in Nottingham, and Monday. Oh, I don't know what day it is. Monday in London. There have been themes that have cropped up, and it's those themes that I'm going to explore um, by going through each of the heads and then talking about that more broadly. So I think I've probably mentioned the fact that Sandra's an executive head of two schools, and she's been super aware that one of her schools is on a further down the road on a journey than the other, but she's using all of her learning from the first school in the second school, which is exactly what the partnering of schools should be about, I think. In with Sandra, what I wanted to focus on is that this doesn't the answers don't have to be big. There are big answers, there are foundational moves you can make with parent participation, but sometimes the approach is really, really simple. So the exam tables example, old exam tables about to be thrown out, giving them to your year 11 so they have a place to revise is um, simple but highly effective, and shows to the parents that you genuinely care, that that young person has the right facilities in order to deliver on all that they have to deliver on in year 11. But also the inclusivity that Sandra brought to her school. So again, small things like hiring a hall in order to allow parents to go to somewhere where they're not going to feel the power dynamic, dressing down and removing the suit with those parents. It's just a really, really small activity that works incredibly well. And then when we went to Wolverhampton and met Natasha and Emily, who, oh my goodness, dynamism personified. I mean, I was tired watching their energy. It was incredible. And I wish they'd have been my head teacher and executive head teacher when I was at school. Now, the vision is both grand and small in this example. Um, the Grace Academy in Coventry, you can take the grand vision, which is that they're using local resources in the community in order to fund the wraparound social care that the pet families need, and in so doing, become an organisation that feels like they're wanted and they belong, and that they're cared for, which means that they buy into the Grace way, as they call it. So there's a couple of themes there that have cropped up in all of the settings I've been to, which is the question: should schools be a facility for social care? The answer is, is there any other choice? Um, the Minister Gould, when I was in Nottingham, spoke to this and said that schools have become a central hub, a central fulcrum in the midst of a community that touches most of the community. And what is needed is that all of these other groups from around form a network with the school at the centre, which is all well and good if the facilities, the funding, etc., were in place in order to support that. And that was one of the themes that come up, and also the expertise. But there was definitely a will in all of the rooms I stood and spoke about, a will to be that place where everyone had a situation or a reason to belong and feel a part of something. So that's point number one about the theme that came up with Natasha and Emily. The second one is that the need to respond to the context within which your school is based. So there is no one size fits all answer to parent participation. That's obvious. It doesn't need speaking, but it does need thinking about, because understanding and empathizing with your parents means making choices that adapt to their world rather than asking your parents and families to adapt to yours. So what Emily was really clear to mention is the fact that they've gone back to paper for a lot of their work. So they've gone back 10 years, 15 years, imagining that the internet never existed, because for a lot of their families the internet does not exist. A lot of their families don't even have a mobile phone with which to receive the text messages or go on the app in order to receive the communication. So they've gone back to planners, which or books that travel between home and school, and paper homework that goes between home and school, which is correct to reach the widest variety of parents at that school, because it gets past a lot of the accessibility issues parents would have if the education was completely digital. But what it also did is allow the parents to see the child's day. So they had a stamping system that communicated how well a child was doing across the day and across the week with certain teachers in certain subjects. And there was a room for the school to comment and a room for the parent to comment. And what that did is created a lovely heat map of the child's day that the parent was aware of and the school was aware of, which I just thought was really, really simple. Remember, simple things sometimes work, and super smart. Then we went to Sunderland, and I met Rachel Conning, who is from Macmillan Academy, and she again is working in a highly deprived area, but this time with the white working class boys that has been a theme of all the data that was presented at the DFE Rise conferences, because all the data suggests it's the white working class boys that are struggling most to attain their potential within the Progress 8. And what Rachel's done in order to support the local communities to create a charity. Now that's again a big thing. So we go vibe between big things and small things, but all of this is warranted. But also the charity that she's created is also an answer to that social care um, idea of whether schools can be at the centre of it and how you fund it. And what she's essentially brought, tapped into is what I now know living in the commercial space, is that companies have a budget to give to charities in order to fund projects. And they also have a corporate social responsibility, which is named something else now. It's got environment in there. I don't know. But it just basically means, can you prove governance that you are delivering well on your for the local area that you're working within? So they have money because it helps them with tax. It helps them with their marketing, because especially in a secondary school, there's potentially 1,000, 2,000 future consumers who they're essentially advertising to by funding those projects. And what she did is she tapped into that in order to bring money in so she could buy the beds, buy the books, buy the food that the local families need. And yes, it seems a long way away from being the organization which delivers on results and exam results and progress with young people. But if you think about the experience of the family, and that this place that you send your child is working to help you keep your family safe and keep your family fed, and to offer support in the when life is hard, you're going to fight hard to send your kid to school. And attendance has an obvious correlation with attainment, let's face it. But more than that, the message at home about school is positive. So now you have a hearts and minds issue. It's very easy for a parent to talk negative and then build a negative feeling in the child about the place where they go to school. And hearts and minds in a school is as important as getting the curriculum right. So if the parents are speaking positively at home about the building, and then the t child's turning up feeling positive and turning up lots. Now you've got attendance and attitude, and that most definitely equates to attainment, right? So it feels right. It feels a lot, and it would be better if we were all doing it collaboratively. So I bring it up here. Then I went to Peterborough and I met Dan Steele, who works at the King John School and top scored our accreditation. um, in the 90s, 90%, which we thought would be almost impossible to attain with all the questions that we ask and the challenges that we place. And there are a few things that Dan does that are simple but effective, let's say. So, for instance, choosing to work with the local community and the children and the staff to create a set of values that they all can belong to. Remember the whole idea of responding to context? And part of that is recognizing that you can't impose your values on those around you. That you would somehow have to have a shared set of values. Now, when I spoke with Sandra, there was the Lawn Manor way. When I spoke to Rachel, there was the Macmillan way. When I spoke to Natasha, there was the Grace Academy way. And the same with Dan. There was a clear understanding of the sort of school he wanted to lead, and that was sort of school he wanted to lead was shared with the local community. And it was through the acronym PRIDE, and that's positivity, resilience, integrity, dignity, and equality. I hope I got that right. Pride, which equally is a massive thing that you want to have people in your school. Now, what was more important than the fact that Dan worked with the parents and the governors and the young people to come up with that is that it's embedded in everything they do, the rewards they give out, the curriculum they set, the pastoral work that they do is all governed around these 5 words. And he told a story of how a parent had come in and challenged him because he felt that the parent felt that the staff weren't following the pride way that had been laid out by the schools, which shows that it was starting to get really embedded throughout the school. And that takes a while, but it has to be done consistently and persistently. But again, it gives people something to believe in, which allows them to feel like they're a part of something. And then on Thursday, losing track of days, but Thursday, I think, Nottingham. And met a wonderful guy called Joe Hermiston from Louth Academy, which is literally about a 20-minute drive from where I was born in Grimsby. So me and him shared a sense of humour and a view of life because we were born in a very similar place. I actually met somebody I went to primary school with. I didn't recognise him. We just went, I went to Edward Street. So did I. What year? That year. Oh my God, we were in the same class. It was very strange. Anyway, Joe was a pragmatic guy and took our drivers and offered really honest opinions. Like driver 4, he didn't feel he was doing anything for which is involved in his school life, bringing volunteers into school, and that's true nationally. Um, but equally, he was doing some of the other stuff that's foundational and to creating really important foundations of what you need to get good parent participation. And again, he did simple things like in order to turn the tide on negativity, he over communicated the positives. So rather than leave people to make up their own mind about how good the school was, he made sure through social media and through his own letters that go out regularly that the parents know what's going on in that school. that they are aware of all the good things that are going on. So if someone and what he's found is that when people speak negatively now online about the school, somebody else is able to go, "Oh no, but have you seen that they're doing this?" So that over communication of the positives has really led to a critical mass of positivity that helps to build a sense of belief in a school and belief and belonging. You know, I've said it a million times. But the thing I liked the most of everything that Joe said was that he sat down with his SLT and had a really strategic conversation about what they do for parents. And he rightly pointed out or the room seemed to nod when he said it, that few senior teams sit down and talk about what they offer their parents. They talk a lot about what they offer literacy. They talk a lot about how they bring on numeracy and maths and employability and all of those things. But how do they manage that key stakeholder of a parent rarely crops up in strategic conversations. So he took his senior team and they walked into the school in the way that a parent would walk into a school and viewed it through their eyes. Now, if that isn't empathy, I don't know what is. Literally walking in their shoes to see what it felt like to come to the school and what it felt like if you were ushered straight away down the back hall to the meeting room, as opposed to feeling free to be able to walk through the school building with the staff. What are you trying to hide if you do that? Was his point. Equally, making sure that the first corridor they meet is absolutely awash with displays of success stories. Remember, over communication of positivity. And he had a folder in reception. So while they were waiting, that folder has all of the, again, all the stories of the successes of the school. So they might come in angry, but they'll start to have a perspective that the school is trying to do everything it can to bring success for them and their young people. So that overall, what it felt to me, what I've learned from these excellent case studies that have worked with me is having two things, three things, two big, one small. Number one, do you have a clear understanding of how you want the local community and therefore your parents to know your school? Do you know what you, if you were to pull a parent aside, what would you wish that they said about you? And how are you going to help it so that your parents believe that about your whole school? What work are you going to do? And with that sense of creating your way, how are you going to communicate that and integrate that so that it becomes lived and known by the students, but also by the parents, so that everyone feels a part of something? That feels really crucial from what I've heard. The second one is context, understanding your context and understanding the levels of deprivation and the challenges and the difficulties, things like data poverty, um, uh, genuinely just life poverty, mental health challenges, etc., etc. How are you equipped to support families in order to make learning possible in those environments? Now, it's too hard for schools to do it alone. And the Grace Academy and the Macmillan Academy are both doing that by fundraising from local businesses, uh, trying to bring in money so that they can buy the fundamentals for their families, which is a lot. It's probably more than most schools can manage, but it gives an idea of how you can be the caring organisation that supports the families that then allows the children to come in and be supported. And the final thing of all things are the small things that the schools were doing. The walking the corridors to see what it felt like, the hiring of a hall so parents didn't have to feel that power dynamic of school and home. It's dressing down so you don't intimidate them. It's creating one academic tutoring appointment rather than forcing a parents to go around the room and feel the negativity of a load of teachers, but they can have one meaningful conversation with one member of staff that's talked to all teachers. Do you know what I mean? Just understanding that what parent would want to come in and hear all that negativity? And that's empathy, but it's also a small thing that recognizes their experience and try and adapting to make it better. Tomorrow or some Monday, because I don't know what day it is. I don't know. On Monday, I'm working with Mark in London, who's got school in Packer in Brighton, and I'm really looking forward to it because this man is smart. He has already spoken to me of writing a letter like Joe does in order to make sure that the parents feel that they know what's going on. On one of our calls to prep, he was eating Anzac biscuits. I don't know what those are. That the year sevens had baked for him, and he had them in a little tub on his desk. Um, and imagine if your little year seven person come home and said the head teacher ate my biscuit and said it was nice. It just gives the feels, doesn't it? Just the feels. Anyway, small things again. Anyway, next week I will pin somebody down. We will do a natter as opposed to a monologue, and we'll focus in on half terms and the post half term period, whereas we lead up to Christmas, which is probably one of the more tiring and exhausting times in school. Anyway, it's been wonderful. Thank you for listening. Speak soon.